have a pretty crazy true crime, and I never heard of this before, but apparently it is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the world.
Ooh, I love unsolved crimes.
There's some... So, it's... Recently, which is how I came across this, they're saying that they solved the identity of who this is, but none of the other things have been solved. We still don't know what actually happened to him. We still don't know what a lot of things meant. Okay. So, this is the body on Somerton Beach, and this happened in Australia in 1948.
Okay.
So, this was in December, which in Australia, it's in the southern hemisphere. This is summer.
Got it.
In December 1948.
I did know that.
Really, like, World War II just ended. Okay?
Yep.
So, it's just wild. So, I'm gonna tell you, like, we're gonna go through how this was found and, like, build up the mystery.
Sure.
So, in South Australia, okay, and this is on Somerton Beach, which is close to Adelaide, which is the capital of South Australia. There's a couple that go for a walk on the beach, and they see this guy laying there, and he's in a full suit, like dressed to the nines, polished, pointy, like leather shoes, like suit, but his head is like laid up on a rock. And they see his, like, right arm outstretch and then fall down. And they think he's just a drunk, okay?
Okay.
They think he's just drunk and passed out on the beach. Like, you know, like, the kind of like that. And so they're like, he's drunk, like, and they just go about their day, okay? Well, another couple ends up seeing him, and they're actually looking down on him on the beach. Like, I'm guessing they're on some kind of walking path above him. And they are talking about it to each other, like, oh, look at that guy. Like, he's passed out drunk. And they said his face was covered in mosquitoes. And they're like, man, he's dead to the world. How's he not noticing all those mosquitoes? Well, come to find out, he was actually dead.
Jeez.
But multiple...
face full of mosquitoes. Ugh.
Oh, I know. Like, that grossed me out so bad.
That's nasty.
So there's many people who walked past and saw him and literally did nothing, just thought he was a drunk guy on the beach. I don't know if that was a regular occurrence at this time.
In a full suit?
In a full suit and polished shoes, like dressed to the nines, nice looking man, like weird.
Yeah, I think if I saw that, I would think that it might be somebody ending themselves. Literally. Yes. That's what I would feel like.
They're on the beach in a nice suit. Right. Like, that is what I would think too.
For sure.
So then somebody else, like, I guess the first couple, the guy comes back. I think he's going for a run. He's doing something on the beach, and he sees he's still there, and he's not moving. So they call the cops, okay?
Okay.
So then the cops they take him in, and they're looking at him, okay? They don't look him in. So let's talk about how he was found, actually. Yeah. So there was a half-smoked cigarette laying on his collar. Okay? Uh-huh. And he
it was in his mouth or something?
Yeah, it was in his mouth, and he, died, I guess, with it in his mouth. His body was cold. There were no marks of any violence. His body was perfect.
Okay.
So it's not like he died of, a stab wound or anything like that. So then 3 hours later, he's at the hospital, okay? The doctor put his time of death at no earlier than 2 a.m., which I don't even know. They didn't even say the time. I mean, what was the time? 7 o'clock on the warm evening of Tuesday. That's when they first found him, was that couple. Half hour later, a couple noticed him.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, the next day.
Oh.
Okay, so it was the next day.
So he had been there a full 24?
He had been there a full 24. Ooh. Yep. So they undress him, of course. They do an autopsy and everything. The contents of his pockets were train tickets to the beach, a pack of chewing gum, some matches, 2 combs, and a pack of Army Club cigarettes containing 7 cigarettes of another more expensive brand called Consitas or something like that.
Okay.
So he had a pack of cigarettes with the wrong cigarettes in it, more expensive cigarettes. Okay. Which is really weird.
That's super strange.
Like, you would think if you were doing something like that, you'd put cheaper cigarettes in a more expensive pack if you cared about your image or something. I don't know. It's just
unless
really
he
strange.
ran out and was with somebody and was like, hey, like, let me get half your pack.
True. So, no wallet at all, no ID, no money. And none of his clothes had any tags. They had all been carefully snipped away.
What?
Nothing had a tag on it.
That's weird.
Weird. Really weird.
Tag obsessed.
And they found that one of his pockets had been repaired with orange thread, which was super unusual, according to them. Like, this wasn't a normal thread that was really readily available in this area.
Okay.
I don't know why that's important, really. I never even found out why the orange thread was important. I don't know why they highlighted that so much.
I don't know.
I guess because it's just a great mystery. I don't know.
Hard to get, maybe, or something?
I don't know. So, a full autopsy was carried out, and they had thought he died of poisoning. Like, that was the doctor's first assumption, was that he died of poisoning.
Because there's no exterior image.
There's nothing.
Issues.
Right. So they did the autopsy, and they found that his pupils were smaller than normal and unusual.
Okay, that makes me think opiates. Like, that's what opiates
smaller and unusual?
Yeah,
what does that
opiates
mean?
makes them smaller.
Yeah, but what does unusual mean? Why wouldn't they just say they were smaller? What does unusual mean?
I don't know.
He had also...
Like, head injury, maybe? Huh.
I don't know.
Okay.
Right? That's what I'm thinking, like...
Because head injuries will make one pupil smaller and one bigger.
Yeah. So, he had also thrown up a little bit. It ran down his mouth. They thought he was probably unable to swallow. His spleen was really large and 3 times its normal size, and his liver was distended and congested with blood. They found the contents of his last meal in his stomach, and more blood. And that suggested poisoning, too, to have blood in your stomach and all of these issues, But nothing to prove poison. They could not find poison in his body.
I know what it is.
What?
The ice bullet in the CIA.
Huh?
You've never heard of the ice bullet? The
but
CIA supposedly has an ice bullet where... they had a gun that would shoot like a single bullet into somebody, and it would be such a small mark that most people wouldn't be able to find it. But it would, if shot in the right place, would cause enough damage that you would die. And then the bullet melts.
And so that would cause all the blood, but what about the throw up?
I don't know, maybe you're throwing up because they shot your liver? I don't know.
Huh. And he just slowly died?
I was just joking, but...
I mean, it kind of goes down that route a little bit, because there's some really crazy stuff that gets found in this. Like, it gets crazier and crazier and crazier.
Really?
Yes. Like, this is just the beginning. So they can't find the faintest trace of poisoning. And, They're talking about the raising and dropping of his right arm. Like, it seemed less like drunkenness than it did a lethal dose of him taking something that had a slow effect, is what they're saying. Like, that's what they're assuming. They really think that it's poison, but they can't find any. And it said...
what about insulin overdose?
I don't think so. So, the body displayed other peculiarities. His calf muscles were... high and very well developed, even though he was in his late 40s, is what they said. He had the legs of an athlete. His toes were oddly wedge-shaped. And the experts...
Webbed? Like
Wedge.
Okay.
Wedge.
I was like, dang, he's like master swimmer?
So this is what the expert said who gave evidence. He said, I have not seen the tendency of calf muscles so pronounced as in this case. His feet were rather striking, suggesting, this is my own assumption, that he had been in the habit of wearing high-heeled pointed shoes.
Oh. Cross-dresser.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but it doesn't go any further into that at all.
I mean, what else could it get into?
I don't know. So, they also...
Unless he's like a field agent, and if he's feminine, if he's a man that's feminine enough, maybe you could do field work dressed up as a woman.
He doesn't look feminine. We'll put... So, I don't know if we can put the picture... We can put the picture of the casting. So, this is the cast of his body.
Dude, he looks kind of feminine. Look at those cheekbones.
I have an actual picture of his body right there.
That looks feminine.
What?
Yes.
He's like a 40-year-old man.
His cheekbones are yeah, but he could turn into a woman easy.
I guess maybe.
And like he has his sideburns are shaved really high to maybe cover a wig, you know?
His sideburns are shaved really
like
high. That is a bit odd.
You see that a lot in the drag community and stuff like that, where they cut way up because it doesn't show under their wig.
Yeah, good call out. Huh. That's weird. So they really didn't know what to go on. So they started looking at local like hospitals local hotels and stuff. Like maybe this guy's from out of town. Let's see if we can find a room he was staying in. Sure. They reached out to train stations because he had train tickets, like to see if they could find anything of his. And they ended up finding something. So they found a suitcase.
A suitcase?
Yes.
Where was the suitcase?
Oh, wait. Before we get to that, I wanted to mention the poison thing. Because Sir Cedric Stanton Hicks said that he thought a very rare poison had been used that decomposed very early after death, leaving no trace. The only poisons capable of this were so dangerous and deadly that Hicks would not say their names aloud in open court. Instead, he passed a scrap of paper on it, which he wrote two names, and that was Digitalis and Strophenthyn. Okay, so he suspected Strophenthyn. It's a rare glucoside derived from the seeds of some African plants. Historically, it was used by a little-known Somali tribe in poison arrows, and it was, like, difficult to obtain.
Okay.
So
some spy stuff.
That's where I immediately was going in my head. Like, this dude is CIA or something. Yeah. Like, all the tags cut out of his clothes to not be able to tell what country they're from or where they're from. No brand names at all on anything.
For sure.
Except for cigarettes. A one-way train ticket. A poison, they can't figure out what it is because it's disappeared and decayed so fast that they can't find a trace.
What if the ice bullet was made out of that poison?
I don't know. So, they're baffled. The police are like, what the heck? I don't know what's going on with this. They can't figure out who he is. They sent out photographs of him, of the corpse, and to people who were, like, missing their relatives. Nobody in the area recognized him at all. Nobody came forward. So they did the thing where they looked at the hotels, dry cleaners, the train stations, and that produced some results. So they found at a main railway station in Adelaide, the capital, they found a brown suitcase had been deposited in the cloakroom on November 30th. So this was, what day did I say? Okay. December something.
Yeah.
It just said December 1948, but there's an actual date here. No? No.
That's interesting, though. I don't
November
really know.
30th.
Okay.
So November 30th is the day that the couple saw him and found him.
And that suitcase was checked in on the 30th, too. So
yes.
same day. Gotcha.
Same day. Interesting. So that was on his way there.
Okay.
Then.
That's weird.
Yeah. So apparently the contents of the suitcase were just as baffling.
Okay.
So the staff that gave them the suitcase couldn't remember anything about the guy. Like, they had no idea who it was. Here's a picture of it, which we can post, and it's the brown suitcase open with what was in it. So here, this is what was in the case. So it did contain a reel of the orange thread, identical to what repaired his pocket.
I'm still curious where that came from.
I know. So it said painstaking care had been applied to remove practically every trace of the owner's identity. The case bore no stickers or markings, and the label had been torn off from one side. The tags were missing from all 3 items of clothing inside. All but 3 items. Okay, 3 items did have brand names. These bore the name Keen or T. Keen, but it proved impossible to trace the names. They couldn't figure it out. They don't know where it came from. And they said the police concluded that someone had purposely left those names on, knowing that the dead man's name was not Keen.
Okay.
So the rest was a stencil kit, which they said of the sort used by the 3rd officer on merchant ships responsible for stenciling of cargo. I don't even know what that means. Stenciling cargo?
So, I don't know. I'm assuming maybe like spray paint?
Maybe. 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 A table knife with the haft cut down? Don't know what that means, to be honest. I don't know what that means.
So the handle part was cut,
maybe
to make it smaller?
I don't know. And a coat stitched using a feather stitch unknown in Australia. So it's foreign.
Okay.
A tailor identified the stitchwork as American in origin.
Of course.
Of course. Suggesting that the coat and perhaps its wearer had traveled through the war years. So World War II. But searches of shipping and immigration records from across the country, again, could not. They didn't get any leads.
Isn't Keen
it's like a dead end.
An American name?
It kind of sounds like it to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't talk tonight. I keep messing up my words. But, so, they re-examine the body again, okay? So they're like, what's going on with this? Let's take another look. They find a secret pocket in his waistband.
Okay.
And they pull out a little piece of paper, and they at first referred to it as secret, and then they say, well, it seems like it was supposed to hold a fob watch. So that changed later, but there was a tiny piece of paper in it, and when they opened it up, it contained 2 words in Persian. I'm going to butcher it. I don't know how to speak Persian. Tamam shud.
Okay.
Which means it is ended. It is ended.
It is ended.
So, not only is this really weird, but the words had been torn from a rare New Zealand edition of the Riot of Omar Khayyam, which is this book. And it's I think they said there was only 5 publications of this book, and he somehow had another edition that was thought to never exist.
What?
Yes.
That's so weird.
Really weird.
So strange.
Super weird. So they figure out that it came from that book. This work was written in the 12th century and had become popular in the war years in Australia. But the edition of that book just didn't make sense. Like, it was super rare.
Yeah.
Apparently, a lot of publications were misspelling that, and it was written in the correct form. So it wasn't misspelled, and it was in that fancy text, and they figured out it was from this really rare edition. And then they go into... So his body was starting to decompose, okay?
Sure.
So they took a cast of it, and they buried him. Which the cast is what I showed you. And we'll put up a picture of the cast.
So that they could keep an image of him?
Yes, and they embalmed him and well-preserved him because they knew it was, like, an ongoing investigation, so they wanted to be able to pull him back up if they needed to, and they put him in dry ground specifically for that. Like, okay we're probably going to dig this guy back up eventually,
sure.
So. But another weird thing is as late as 1978, flowers would be found at the grave at odd intervals, and they could never figure out who was leaving them.
No way. What?
Up until 1978, he was getting flowers, and this is an unknown person. Nobody knows who he is, and it keeps showing up, and they can't figure out who's leaving them.
That's so strange.
Isn't it? So, 8 months after the investigation had begun, the search for the right edition of this book had some results. So this random man, walks into the detective's office with a copy of the book and a weird story. So him and his brother, around the time, just after the discovery of this man's body on the beach, get in their car, which he kept parked just a few hundred yards from that beach.
Okay.
They both get in, and his brother finds a copy, or his brother-in-law found a copy of the book behind, like, the back seats on the floor. And he picked it up and, like, threw it in the glove box, them both thinking it was each other's, and they just didn't say anything to each other. Like, it was like, oh.
Isn't that book worth, like, a bunch of money?
I don't know.
If there's only 6
After,
originals?
there's only 5, and he has a 6th edition that doesn't make sense because it was never produced by the publication. So it doesn't make sense how it exists.
So strange.
Because there was only 5 produced. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, no. There's 2 of those that don't make sense, which we're going to come up... Like, they said 5 were only produced, but we have 7. Because there's another person that gets brought into this, too. So, because they didn't have his book, they just got it. This guy walks in with it and said, I found it in my car. Like, I saw you guys post, it came out in the newspaper that they were looking for it, and he's like, I found a book in my car right around that time when that guy was found on that beach.
Huh.
So he brings it in and is like, it's been sitting in my glove compartment.
That's so
for
strange.
8 months. For
Gosh.
8 months. You know, so at some point this guy was in his car. Like, I don't know. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Super strange. So
they look at the book and they find that the final page had been torn out, which is where that little scrap of paper would have come from. So they look at the book closely, and with a magnifying glass, they see a phone number had been penciled on the back rear of the book.
Okay.
And they also saw some faint impressions of other letters written in capitals underneath it. And that was finally like a solid clue. So the phone number was unlisted, but they ended up finding the woman that it belonged to, and it was a young nurse who lived in Somerton Beach. And they protected her name, so we don't even know who she is. We only know her by a nickname, Justin.
Okay. Why did they protect her name?
I don't know.
Because there wasn't any information after they talked to her, or...
They were really... So it says they protect... In this day and age, they protected witnesses, like, a lot that were embarrassed to be connected to cases. And apparently she was living with a man that was about to become her husband, so they were thinking that there was some kind of romance maybe between them.
Okay.
And... So, I don't know. But she
That's
admitted that she had indeed given this copy to a man she knew during the war. Okay? She gave the detectives his name. Alfred Boxall. He's alive. So that's not the man that they found on the beach. They go looking for this guy and he's alive. And he has the copy of the book that she gave him.
No. What? What?
I don't know. So they felt confident. Oh, we found him. And they look up this guy and they're like, he's alive. So they go talk to him and he's like, yeah, I have the book. And they're like, so where did this book come from?
No, that doesn't even make sense. How did her phone number get scratched into a different version?
I don't know. How are they both have that? That doesn't make any sense.
Oh my God.
It doesn't make any sense.
What?
So they trace him down, they track him down. He was alive, they talked to him, he had the copy. It bore the nurse's inscription, but was completely intact, no pages torn out. But still had the phone number.
What?
Like, it had her inscription on it. Doesn't make any sense.
None. Somebody's lying. Someone's not being honest. There's some shady stuff going on here.
This is super sketchy. So, they didn't question her much more closely, but they did do, like, I guess, some gentle probing on this delicate woman in the 1940s. I don't know. But, so they did get some information from her. She recalled that, sometime the previous year, she had come home to be told by neighbors that there was a man called on her and asked for her. And she was confronted with the cast of the dead man's face, and she almost fainted when she saw the face.
Why?
Don't know. She said she had no idea who he was, but almost fainted when she saw it.
What? So she's lying.
Totally. I think so. She firmly denied she'd never seen this man before, but when seeing his face, she almost faints. That makes no sense at all.
And it's a cast. It's not even like she's seeing a real body and she's like, whoa, this is like grossing me out. You know what I mean?
It said she was taken aback, like freaked out to the point of almost fainting.
She's the one leaving the flowers.
That's what I think.
You should look up. Oh, we don't have her name. You can't even see.
We don't know her
died.
legal name.
Oh man.
They do say she died like a few years later. I think.
In 78.
Well, I don't know. We'll look. It says it in a minute, but it's down a little bit. So the faint impression that police officer had seen. They examined it under a UV light, and they saw this code.
Yeah, it's for sure some CIA stuff, dude.
It's some kind of code.
And
it's
I
really
think
weird.
that guy is involved in it that had the other copy. That book was their decoder.
Exactly.
Yep. That book was their decoder, and it was made specifically for this. That's why it's not real and it's not produced, but it's close enough that people wouldn't look.
Exactly.
Yep.
That is exactly what I think it was.
Yep. It was some secret ops stuff.
Absolutely. So, it says, from the manner in which the lines have been represented as being set out in the original, it is evident that the end of each line indicates a break in sense. There is insufficient number of letters for definite conclusions to be based on analysis, but the indications together with the acceptance of the above breaks and sense indicate, I don't know, this is gibberish. It doesn't even matter. Dude, this code has never been broken. What you're saying right now makes total sense. So I would assume somebody has tried to break the code with the book, unless they just can't get a copy of that exact book.
Probably not.
It's probably that exact book, and you have to have it to be able to decode it.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, but there's so many people who have investigated this over the years. Uh-oh.
What?
You unplugged the sign.
Yeah.
There's so many